Human gives the alien girl fresh water, and the alien girl says the water has seen him older. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Ethan had never seen a creature quite like her. He had heard rumors, stories of extraterrestrial beings, but nothing could have prepared him for this moment. Zara stood in front of him, an alien from another world. With her smooth, shimmering green skin, large golden eyes, and strange, flowing attire that seemed to ripple with an energy of its own. Ethan's heart raced. His mind struggled to grasp the situation. He was out here in the wilderness of this foreign planet, far from Earth, and now, he found himself standing in front of a being from the stars. Despite the initial shock, something about Zara felt familiar, almost human. The way her eyes met his, the silent curiosity she held in her gaze, it wasn't threatening. Ethan took a step forward, breaking the silence. His voice was cautious but firm. I know you don't speak my language, but I have water. You must be thirsty. His words were met with an odd, almost amused smile. Zara tilted her head slightly, her gaze never leaving him. She extended one delicate hand, a silent request. Ethan held out the bottle of water he had kept tightly in his bag for emergencies. He had no idea how long she had been out here, stranded in the wilds of this strange land, but he knew one thing for sure. If there was one thing any living creature needed, it was water. As he handed her the bottle, her golden eyes sparkled with a look that was both confused and intrigued. She took the bottle in her slender hands, inspecting it as if it were something both foreign and precious to her. Then, without hesitation, she lifted the bottle to her lips and drank deeply. Ethan watched as she swallowed the liquid, her expression unreadable. When she finished, she lowered the bottle and returned her gaze to him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, with a voice that sounded like a whisper carried by the wind, Zara finally spoke. The water, it has seen you grow older. Ethan blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. What? He asked, his voice low. Zara met his gaze again, her lips curving slightly into a mysterious smile. The water has seen you grow older, she repeated. It remembers your past, your future, the passage of time. Water holds memories, you see. Ethan stood still, stunned. He had heard legends of ancient beings who could read the flow of time, but hearing it from this strange alien in front of him was something else entirely. He opened his mouth to respond, but found himself at a loss for words. What was she saying? Did she mean that the water somehow had the power to know him in a way that nothing else could? He wasn't sure, but something told him that this moment was only the beginning of something much larger, something that would change everything he thought he knew about the universe. Ethan stood there for a moment, processing Zara's strange words. The water has seen you grow older. What could that possibly mean? Was she referring to the water's ability to carry memories, or was there something more to it? His mind raced with questions, but Zara remained silent, staring at him with those large, golden eyes. There was something about her presence that felt both comforting and unsettling at the same time. She wasn't threatening, not in the way he would expect from an alien. But there was an undeniable aura of mystery surrounding her. What do you mean? Ethan finally asked, his voice softer now, almost hesitant. Zara took a step forward, her bare feet silent on the alien soil. She looked down at the bottle of water in her hand, turning it slowly as if contemplating something far beyond the simple container. The water, it carries the essence of life. It holds the stories of those who drink it, even of those who never will. Her voice was calm, steady, as if she were explaining something Ethan should already understand. It remembers. Ethan frowned, trying to grasp the meaning of her words. Remembers what? He asked. The past, the future, it doesn't matter. Water sees time as it is, without judgment, without limitation, she said, her gaze never leaving the bottle. And when you drink from it, it sees you. It sees your life, your choices, and it reflects them back to you in ways you cannot understand. Ethan was quiet, staring at her, unsure of how to respond. It was as if Zara wasn't just talking about water, but something far deeper, something that transcended the physical world he knew. He thought back to Earth, to everything he had left behind to explore the stars. Could it be possible that water, something so ordinary, could hold such power? He glanced down at the bottle in her hand, still gripping it tightly, as if it were a relic from another age. "How do you know all this?" he asked. Zara's expression remained unchanged, but there was a slight shift in her eyes, as if a memory had surfaced. "I have seen many things, Ethan," she said, her voice carrying a weight of experience. "I have traveled through the galaxies, witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, and observed the passage of time in ways you cannot begin to imagine. I have learned to understand the flow of life, how everything is connected. And water," she paused, her fingers brushing the bottle lightly, "is the thread that ties it all together." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. He had read about the universe, about alien races and their advanced technologies, but nothing had prepared him for this. Zara was not just an alien. She was a being who seemed to understand the very fabric of existence itself. "But why tell me this?" Ethan asked. "What does it have to do with me?" Zara's eyes met his once again, and for the first time, Ethan saw something like compassion in her gaze. "Because you are part of it, Ethan," she replied, her voice soft yet firm. "You are part of the water, part of the life, part of the cycle that flows through this universe. And you will come to understand this in time." Ethan's mind raced, trying to piece together what Zara had said. Part of the water? Part of the cycle? It didn't make sense. Yet, as he stood there, something deep within him stirred. A sense of purpose, something he had never quite felt before. He knew this encounter was no accident. Something had brought him here, to this moment, and Zara's words had ignited a spark in him, a spark that could not be ignored. Ethan stood there, his mind spinning with Zara's cryptic words. He could feel a growing weight in his chest, the realization settling in that this moment, this encounter, was not something ordinary. It was as if the universe had been leading him to this exact point in time. But what did it all mean? He didn't have the answers. "So what now?" Ethan asked, his voice a little hoarse as he tried to steady himself. Zara's gaze softened, and she stepped closer to him, her presence almost ethereal, like she was a part of the air itself. "Now, you begin to understand," she replied, her voice calm but filled with a quiet power. She extended a hand, as if inviting him to follow her. Without thinking, Ethan took a step forward. His feet sank slightly into the soft ground beneath them, a sensation unlike anything he had ever felt on Earth. The soil here was rich, alive, and hummed with an energy that seemed to vibrate through his very bones. Zara led him through a dense, lush forest, the trees towering above them like ancient sentinels. The air was thick with the scent of unfamiliar flowers and strange, electric sounds filled the atmosphere. Ethan was fully aware of how far from home he was, yet in Zara's presence, there was a strange comfort. He couldn't explain it, but it felt as though she was leading him towards something important, something that would change everything. As they walked, Zara spoke again, her words flowing like the water she had mentioned earlier. "You will not find the answers in books or on screens. The answers are in the world around you, in the life that flows through everything," she said, her eyes never leaving the path ahead. Ethan nodded, trying to process her words. It wasn't like anything he had learned in his years of training or research. Nothing had prepared him for this. "You mean nature?" he asked, his voice unsure. Zara smiled slightly, a glimmer of something ancient passing through her gaze. "Yes, but not just nature. Time, memory, the cycles of life and death, they all flow together. Water is the medium, the conduit, the thread that ties everything in the universe." Ethan could feel the weight of her words settle deep within him. It was overwhelming, but at the same time, it felt like a truth he had always known, buried deep inside. The water, the time. He had always been so focused on the tangible, the physical, the things he could see and touch. But this was something beyond that. Something he hadn't even known he was missing. Zara led him deeper into the forest, the air growing warmer and the ground more alive with energy. Suddenly, she stopped in front of a clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a large stone structure, covered in strange, glowing symbols. It looked ancient, older than anything Ethan had ever seen, even on Earth. "This is the place," Zara said quietly, as if the very air held its breath. Ethan stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't know what he was about to encounter, but something deep inside him told him that this was the key. The key to understanding everything. "What is this place?" Ethan asked, his voice barely a whisper. Zara turned to him, her golden eyes filled with an understanding that went beyond words. "This is where time begins and ends," she said simply, her voice carrying a weight of knowledge that Ethan couldn't comprehend. He felt the world shift around him, as if the ground beneath his feet was pulling him toward the center of the stone structure. He took a step forward, his body moving almost on its own, drawn to the place as if by some unseen force. And in that moment, Ethan knew that whatever happened next, he would never be the same. Ethan stepped forward, his feet sinking into the soft, glowing ground of the clearing. The air around him seemed to hum with a quiet, vibrating energy, as if the very fabric of the universe was pulsing. He looked around at the stone structure, its ancient carvings illuminated by an eerie, otherworldly light. Each symbol seemed to tell a story that was older than time itself. Zara was standing beside him, her presence almost ethereal. She didn't need to speak for Ethan to know she understood what he was feeling, an overwhelming sense of awe and confusion. But there was no fear. Not anymore. "What is this place?" Ethan asked again, his voice shaky with the weight of the moment. Zara turned to him, her eyes meeting his with an expression that seemed both sad and knowing. "This is where the threads of time converge," she said softly. "Where the past, the present, and the future exist at once. This is where everything begins, and where everything ends." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. "But how do you know all this? How do you understand it?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Zara's gaze never wavered. "I have seen time bend, stretch, and break. I have walked through civilizations that no longer exist. I have seen the stars form and burn out, and I have felt the pulse of life across galaxies. Time is not linear, Ethan. It is a cycle, a web that weaves all things together. Water is its heart, its mirror." Ethan stared at her, struggling to process everything she was saying. He had come here looking for answers, but this was more than he had ever imagined. "So what am I supposed to do?" he asked, feeling the weight of her words settle heavily on him. Zara didn't answer immediately. Instead, she took a step forward and touched one of the glowing symbols on the stone structure. The moment her fingers made contact, the symbols began to shift, glowing brighter, almost as if they were alive. The ground beneath their feet trembled slightly. "You are here because you have a part to play," Zara said, her voice steady but carrying a sense of finality. "You are not just a traveler, Ethan. You are part of the flow. You are part of the water." Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. He had no idea what she meant by that. Was he supposed to change something? Was he supposed to understand this strange energy that surrounded him? "But how can I be part of it?" Ethan asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. Zara's expression softened, and she took a deep breath. "The water that flows through the universe, it has seen all things. It remembers every choice, every event. And you," she paused, looking deep into his eyes, "you are connected to it. You have the ability to understand it. You just need to trust." Ethan looked down at the ground, the weight of Zara's words sinking in. He felt something stir inside him, something powerful and ancient, like a memory he couldn't quite reach. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of it all. Zara stepped back and gestured for him to approach the stone structure. "This is where your journey begins, Ethan, but it is also where you must make a choice." Ethan felt a sudden rush of uncertainty. What was he supposed to choose? What was at stake? As he took another step toward the stone, he could feel the energy around him intensify. The air grew thick with anticipation, and the ground beneath his feet hummed with the power of something much greater than himself. It was a choice, a decision that would affect not just him, but the very fabric of time itself. Ethan's mind swirled with possibilities, but in the end, he knew there was only one path forward. With a deep breath, he stepped closer to the structure, knowing that whatever happened next, his life would never be the same. Ethan's heart pounded as he stepped closer to the stone structure. The air was thick with energy, vibrating under his feet, as if the very ground was alive, waiting for something to happen. Zara stood by, her gaze fixed on the symbols etched into the surface of the stone. There was no fear in her eyes, only quiet certainty. As Ethan reached out to touch the stone, a pulse of warmth spread from the structure, flowing into his hand. It felt as though the stone itself had a heartbeat, and with every beat, he could feel something deep inside him shift. The symbols on the stone began to glow brighter, swirling around in patterns that made no sense to him, yet felt somehow familiar. Zara's voice broke the silence, calm yet powerful. "This is where the path diverges, Ethan. This is where you must choose." Ethan pulled his hand back for a moment, still feeling the warmth lingering. "Choose what?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Zara stepped forward, her eyes locked on his. "You must choose whether to remain as you are, or to step into the flow. The water carries the power to shape time, to understand the threads that bind the universe. You can choose to understand, to walk the path that will reveal the secrets of existence. Or you can turn away and remain bound by the limitations of your world." Ethan stood frozen, his mind reeling. The weight of her words hung in the air like a heavy fog. He had always believed that time was linear, that it moved in a straight line from the past to the future. But now, standing before this ancient structure, with Zara's words echoing in his mind, he began to see things differently. Time wasn't just a series of events. It was something much greater, something that could be shaped and understood, like water flowing through a river. The idea that he could understand it, that he could become a part of it, was both terrifying and exhilarating. He looked back at Zara, searching her face for some hint, some sign of what he should do. But there was nothing, only calm, steady eyes that seemed to see straight through him. "How do I choose?" Ethan asked. "How can I know what's right?" Zara didn't answer immediately. Instead, she placed her hand on the stone once more, and the symbols flared to life again, brighter than before. For a moment, the entire clearing seemed to pulse with energy, and Ethan felt as though the very air around them was vibrating with purpose. "The choice is not about what is right or wrong," Zara said softly. "It is about embracing what you are meant to become. Time does not wait for you to decide, Ethan. It moves, it flows, and if you stand still, you will be left behind. The question is not whether you are ready. It is whether you will take the first step." The words settled over him like a weight, but there was no fear, only an overwhelming sense of possibility. He could feel the power of the stone, the energy of the water, and the flow of time all around him, urging him forward. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the weight of the decision sink in. When he opened them again, his gaze met Zara's, and for the first time, he felt as though he truly understood. He wasn't just a traveler. He was part of something much larger, something that had been waiting for him all along. With a deep breath, Ethan reached out again and placed his hand on the stone. The pulse of energy surged through him, and for a brief moment, everything went silent. Then, the symbols on the stone shifted, and the ground beneath him began to glow with an intense light. Ethan's heart raced as he felt the world around him change. The stone seemed to open, revealing a passageway that led deep into the earth. This was it, the first step. Ethan knew there was no turning back. With one last look at Zara, he stepped into the passage, ready to discover the truth of the universe and his place within it. Ethan stepped into the passageway, his body trembling slightly as the light from the stone structure faded behind him. The air in the tunnel was thick with a strange, cool energy, and the walls seemed to hum with an otherworldly presence. As he moved forward, the ground beneath him felt soft, almost alive, shifting slightly as if the very earth was breathing. His mind raced with questions, but the only thing that was clear to him now was the certainty that he had made the right choice. The walls around him flickered with faint patterns, glowing softly as he moved deeper into the passage. There were no sounds, only the steady rhythm of his footsteps echoing in the quiet, creating an eerie sense of isolation. But despite the silence, Ethan felt a strange connection to this place, a sense of being guided, as if the very universe was pulling him towards something greater. The deeper he walked, the more the tunnel seemed to change. The walls, once solid and unyielding, began to shimmer with liquid-like patterns. The air became thick with a familiar, yet strange scent, like water, but older, as if it had been flowing for millennia. He could feel the presence of something immense around him, something ancient, but he could not see it. It was as though the passage itself was a living thing, guiding him to some unknown destination. Eventually, The tunnel began to open up, widening into a vast, cavernous space. In the center of the cavern stood a massive pool of water, glowing with a soft, ethereal light. The water seemed to move on its own, swirling gently, almost as if it was alive. Ethan felt an overwhelming urge to step closer. He moved toward the pool, his heart pounding in his chest. As he approached, the water seemed to respond to him, rippling in waves that mirrored his every step. The air around him felt charged with energy, and the water seemed to whisper, though the sound was barely audible. He reached out and placed his hand on the surface, and as his fingers touched the water, a flood of images and emotions washed over him. His mind was overwhelmed by visions, flashes of distant worlds, of events unfolding across time. He saw civilizations rise and fall, stars being born and dying, the ebb and flow of time itself. He saw himself, too, his past, his future, the choices he had made, and the ones yet to come. It was as though the water was showing him everything, laying bare the truth of existence. His heart raced as he pulled his hand back, gasping for breath. The water settled, but the feeling of it lingered, an overwhelming sense of knowing, as though he had touched something that had been hidden from him for his entire life. "This is the heart of time," a voice said softly, pulling him out of his trance. He turned quickly to find Zara standing behind him, her golden eyes glowing softly in the dim light. "This is where the flow of the universe begins," she continued, her voice carrying the weight of millennia. "Here, time and water are one. Everything you saw, everything you felt, is a part of you now. You are connected to it, Ethan. You always have been." Ethan opened his mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come. He didn't know what to say. He had touched the very fabric of the universe, seen the threads of time unravel before him, and now he understood. He was not just a traveler. He was a part of the flow, a part of the water that connected all things. "What now?" he finally asked, his voice hoarse. Zara stepped closer, her eyes soft with understanding. "Now, you begin your journey," she said, her voice like a promise. "You will walk the path of the flow, Ethan, and in time, you will understand everything." Ethan nodded, his heart filled with a sense of purpose he had never known before. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew one thing for certain. He was ready. With one last look at the glowing pool, he stepped forward, prepared to face the journey that awaited him. Ethan stepped forward, his heart racing with anticipation. The glowing pool in front of him seemed to pulse with a rhythm of its own, as if the very water was alive and aware of his presence. Zara stood silently beside him, her gaze fixed on the shifting surface, her golden eyes reflecting the light. The air felt heavier now, as though it was filled with the weight of everything that had come before and everything that was yet to come. For a moment, Ethan simply stood there, lost in the vastness of it all. He had touched the flow of time, felt the pulse of the universe, and now he was supposed to understand it. But how? How could one man possibly comprehend something as infinite as time itself? Zara's voice broke through his thoughts. "You feel it, don't you?" she asked softly. Ethan turned to her, nodding slowly. "Yes," he replied, his voice barely a whisper. "I feel it, but I don't understand it. How can I?" Zara smiled gently, her eyes softening with something like compassion. "You don't have to understand all of it right now, Ethan," she said. "Time is not something to be understood all at once. It's something to be experienced, something to be felt. The more you walk the path, the more you will begin to see how it all connects, how everything flows together." Ethan swallowed, still unsure of himself. He had always been a man of logic, of science. He had been trained to understand the world through reason, through facts and evidence. But this was different. This was beyond anything he had ever studied or imagined. "So what do I do now?" he asked. Zara's expression grew more serious, and for the first time, she stepped closer to him. "Now, you begin to walk the path," she said. "You are not just a witness to the flow of time, Ethan. You are a part of it. You will begin to see things, experience things that others cannot. You will see the threads that connect all things, the way the water flows through the universe, the way it shapes everything." Ethan took a deep breath, steadying himself. He wasn't sure he was ready for what was to come, but he knew he had no choice. This was his journey now, and there was no turning back. He turned his gaze back to the pool, watching as the water rippled gently. It seemed to beckon him, pulling him forward. He could feel the connection now, a pull that he couldn't explain, but that he couldn't ignore either. Without another word, Ethan stepped into the pool, his feet sinking into the water. It was cool, but not cold, comforting, yet powerful. As soon as his feet touched the surface, the water seemed to respond, rippling outward in waves. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, images began to form in the water, like fleeting glimpses of distant memories. Ethan blinked, trying to focus on the images. He saw himself, his life, his choices, the moments that had brought him to this point. But there was more. He saw the stars, the galaxies, the birth and death of worlds. He saw the flow of time, stretching out before him like an endless river, full of possibilities and paths yet to be taken. The images shifted, and for a brief moment, Ethan caught a glimpse of something else, something familiar, yet different. A figure, standing in the distance, watching him. The figure was bathed in light, their features obscured, but Ethan felt an overwhelming sense of recognition. His heart skipped a beat. Who was that? Was it him? Or was it someone else? The vision faded as quickly as it had appeared, leaving Ethan standing in the pool, his heart racing, his mind spinning with the possibilities. What was that? He asked, turning to Zara, but she was silent, her gaze fixed on the water, her face unreadable. It's the flow, she said quietly. The past, the present, and the future. It all exists together, intertwined. You will see more in time. Ethan nodded, though he still had so many questions. But there was no time for answers, not yet. The path ahead was waiting for him, and he knew that the journey was only just beginning. Ethan stood in the pool, his feet submerged in the cool, almost liquid-like surface, still processing the strange vision he had just seen. The water rippled gently around him, as though it too was waiting for something to happen. He looked back at Zara, who stood at the edge of the pool, her golden eyes never leaving him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was thick with unspoken questions, yet somehow, Ethan felt a sense of calm settle over him. He had seen the flow of time, witnessed the interwoven paths of past, present, and future. But what did it all mean? Zara's voice broke the silence, soft but filled with meaning. The flow is not a path, Ethan, she said, her eyes shifting toward the shimmering water. It is everything. It is the energy that moves through all things. The stars, the worlds, the lives. Time itself is not a straight line, but a vast web of interconnected events, constantly shifting, constantly evolving. Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine at her words. The very idea of time being fluid, of the universe being a web rather than a series of points in space and time, was overwhelming. He had studied the stars, the science of the cosmos, and yet this was something beyond any textbook or theory he had ever encountered. He turned his gaze back to the pool, watching as the water shimmered in the low light. So, what happens now? He asked quietly, his voice carrying the weight of his uncertainty. Zara stepped closer to him, her presence as comforting as it was mysterious. Now, you must learn to walk the flow, she said, her voice steady. The universe has shown you a glimpse of its vastness. It has given you a taste of what is possible. But this journey is not one that can be rushed. You must learn to listen, to feel the pull of the flow, to understand how everything is connected. Ethan looked at her, searching her face for some kind of reassurance. But how do I learn that? How do I begin? He asked. Zara smiled softly. You have already begun, Ethan. Every step you take from here on out is part of the journey. You must trust yourself, trust the flow, and let it guide you. Ethan nodded, although doubts still lingered in his mind. He was no longer the man who had stepped into this passage just hours ago. He had seen the threads of time, felt the pulse of the universe, but he was still unsure of what it all meant for him. He closed his eyes for a moment, allowing the cool water to steady his mind, focusing on the quiet hum of energy that surrounded him. He felt the weight of everything pressing against him, the responsibility of the knowledge he had just gained, but there was also something else. Something deeper. He was part of this flow, part of this vast, infinite system. And somehow, in a way he could not fully understand, he felt ready to embrace it. When he opened his eyes, Zara was still standing beside him, her gaze thoughtful. She spoke again, her words soft, but carrying a weight of finality. The path will not always be clear, Ethan. There will be moments of doubt, moments when you feel lost. But remember this, the flow is always there, guiding you, even when you cannot see it. Ethan swallowed hard, the words settling deep inside him. He felt a surge of determination rise within him. This was his journey now, and he was going to walk it, no matter where it led. With one last look at the glowing pool, Ethan took a step forward, his feet moving steadily through the water. The next part of the journey awaited him, and he was ready to face it. Whatever came next, he knew that he was no longer just a traveler in this universe. He was a part of it, and that knowledge, however daunting, gave him the strength to move forward. Ethan's steps grew more certain as he moved deeper into the path. The pool behind him was now nothing but a distant memory, its ethereal glow fading as he ventured forward. The tunnel before him stretched endlessly, its walls still shimmering with strange, alien patterns that danced across the surfaces like liquid light. He could feel the pull of the flow around him, a sensation that seemed to guide him, urging him forward. The air was thick with the weight of unseen forces, but Ethan had begun to feel the subtle rhythm of the universe, as though he had become attuned to it. It was a strange, humbling sensation, like being one note in a song that stretched across the cosmos. As he walked, the walls began to shift, transforming into something new. The once static stone now appeared to be alive, moving and growing with each step he took. The designs on the walls seemed to swirl and change, the colors blending and shifting in ways that made no logical sense. It was beautiful, but unsettling. Was this what Zara had meant by the flow? Was this the manifestation of time and space? Ethan wasn't sure, but as he moved forward, the uncertainty faded. The further he walked, the more connected he felt to it, as though his every step was guiding him toward an understanding he hadn't yet grasped. The tunnel opened up into another cavern, but this one was different. Instead of the glowing water, there was a massive tree in the center of the space, its roots sprawling out across the ground like tendrils, twisting and turning in complex patterns. The tree itself was unlike anything he had ever seen. Its bark shimmered with a pale, almost translucent light, and the leaves glowed softly, as though they were breathing. Ethan felt an overwhelming sense of awe as he approached the tree. He reached out instinctively, his fingers brushing the bark. The moment his skin made contact, a rush of energy flowed through him, deeper than the pool, deeper than anything he had experienced before. His mind was flooded with images, not just of places and people, but of ideas, concepts that were far beyond human comprehension. He saw entire civilizations rise and fall in the blink of an eye. He saw the birth of stars, the death of worlds. He saw the endless cycle of life, death, and rebirth that made up the very fabric of existence. And through it all, the tree remained, steady and timeless. When the vision subsided, Ethan staggered back, his heart pounding in his chest. The energy had been overwhelming, but now, there was a quiet understanding in him. He knew that he was part of it, part of the flow, part of the endless cycle. He was no longer an outsider looking in. He was a part of the universe, and the universe was a part of him. Zara's voice broke through the stillness, soft and distant. "You see now, don't you?" she asked. Ethan turned to find her standing at the edge of the cavern, her eyes soft and knowing. "Yes," he whispered. "I see." He didn't fully understand it yet, but he felt it. He felt the truth of it deep inside. There was no going back now. His journey had only just begun, and he knew he had much more to learn, much more to experience. But for the first time, he felt ready. The path ahead was uncertain, but the flow would guide him. And as long as he trusted it, he knew he would never be alone.